Awesome. So, Bryan, I want to thank you for coming on with us. This podcast is called Collecting Compounders, and this is the cross-border edition. So, Collecting Compounders, we have cross-border edition. We have Beyond the Plan, which is Tracy's little channel where it's all about financial planning, things like that. And then we have the Collecting Compounders itself, which is where Chris and I talk about the great businesses that we invest in and great businesses out there. And he does a little macroeconomic update every once in a while, right? So it's 3 little channels within one YouTube channel, basically. So Bryan, you are the founder, CEO of RetireMitten. Do you want to give us a little bit, or can you give us a little bit of background on yourself and how you got into the cross-border space? Because what you're doing is really interesting. Right, like you're actually in Michigan on the U.S. side, but you're working with Canadians that are living in the United States, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it, Pedro. I'm really looking forward to listen to the podcast. As we were just talking about, there's so much. As much as you feel like I've been doing this for a while now. Probably 10 years I've been doing cross-border planning, and I still learn stuff. Right, so every single day there's so much knowledge. So always good to have another place to learn that. My name is Bryan Haggard. I started a cross-border financial planning firm called RetireMitten Financial. We're located here in, we have a couple offices, but in kind of the suburbs of Detroit. Started the business just over 5 years ago. We're a kind of a small but growing business. I have one financial advisor that works for me. We have kind of an admin. I call her the chief everything officer. As you know, when you're a small business and you're growing, and you have somebody who kind of does a lot for you, and that she fills that role for us. And we just hired another financial advisor. By the time that this comes out, he'll be started with us as well. So kind of a small but growing little firm here.
And how did you specifically get into the cross-border space, like to specialize in cross-border?
Yeah, so it was really, I was a fairly new financial planner. This is probably 14, 15 years ago at this point. And I was working for a large RIA, Registered Investment Advisory firm here in Michigan. And I had somebody come in the office, and he, said, "Hey, I have this CPP, I have OAS, I have these RSPs. What do I do?" And he was actually a client of ours.
And you're like, what is this stuff? CPP, OAS, RRSP.
Exactly what I said, Pedro. Yeah, I was like, I've never heard of any of these things, right? But I was like, you know what? I'm a newer financial advisor here. I'll go. We have 10 other people that work here who are financial advisors. Somebody can help us, right? So I went and asked all of them, and they're like, I think I've heard of it before, but not really. And just tell them to call their Canadian financial advisor, right? And I was like, well, really want to help this person out. So I started, I ordered a book. I started like reading through the U.S. and Canada totalization agreement, figured out about this WEC, reduction thing. Just went through everything as much, and just started to help him out a little bit, right? And did this big Excel spreadsheet of like, here's your OAS and your CPP and your wealth reduction, your Social Security benefits. And he was just really appreciative. And it took me a long time to figure this out. And what we realized is, we really specialized at the time with General Motors employees. And a lot of folks from, Ontario plants had moved down to Michigan plants to work. And so we had a lot of Canadians that we worked with that we, basically as soon as I kind of figured this out a little bit, I started to be kind of the Canadian guy at her company, right? So I started working a lot more and just kind of figured it out, and spending as much time as I could on the U.S. and Canada totalization agreements, and U.S. Social Security website and the CRA to try to just figure out as much as I could about all these different benefits.
Yeah, I'm smirking because I saw Tracy smiling, because what you just described is pretty much what she's going through.
That's what I did last week, was create that spreadsheet that compares Social Security, CPP, OAS.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I burned probably 80 hours doing the spreadsheet and figuring the totalization agreement.
So when it comes to cross-border, there aren't really a lot of tools out there that allow you to just plug in the information, like for, the standard financial planning, right? If you're an American or a Canadian, there's a lot of tools that you just plug in the information, but boom, it spits out the results. But cross-border, you have tax credits and foreign credits and PFIX and all this other stuff that you have to worry about. And totalization, which I kind of go cross-eyed when Tracy starts to talk to me about all this other stuff because my focus is on the investment side. So you became the Canadian guy.
I became the Canadian guy and decided, there's a business opportunity here, right? So I started the business, no clients 5 years ago. And you told my wife, let's give it a year. Who knows? We may have no clients in a year, 2 clients in a year. We really have no idea. And I had, right after starting the business, decided, I'm going to use Facebook as a way to, do webinars. I've done webinars in the past, and I'll do like a little Facebook ad to see if it works out. And my first webinar, a month into this business, we had almost 100 people on this webinar, and I was like, I think there's an opportunity here, right? So it's really taken off from there, and try to get better and learn new things. We learn from you. There's other cross-border planners that I have to reach out to. I talk to my cross-border CPA all the time. Right now, we have a little bit of a network because as much as you think you know this stuff, Pedro, there's questions that still pop up, and I'm like, gosh, that I had no idea. So we do our best, right, when there's not a lot of information out there.
Exactly. I think one of the most frustrating parts that I run into is like in relation to taxation, because we are not tax experts. We don't prepare tax returns. We don't give tax advice. We rely on our cross-border CPAs for that. And there seems to be conflicting advice or opinions when it comes to certain areas of cross-border, right? So it makes it even more difficult to properly advise clients when we're dealing with that. Like, and Tracy deals with that all the time because she does the plans for on the Canadian side, right? So the American Tracy talk. Oh, sorry, let me introduce Tracy properly. Tracy is a financial planner on my team and associate financial advisor. Pretty much one of my right hands. I have a couple right hands. She's definitely one of them. So I lean heavily on her when it comes to the planning side. Right. Tracy, maybe you want a little bit of background on yourself and some of the challenges that you faced recently.
So I was in insurance for about 12 years before joining Pedro's team. I focused on the insurance side for a couple of years here before I became a CFP. And now I just focus on financial planning on the Canadian side. But because we have so many cross-border clients, I am learning how to on the cross-border side of it. So I just find that when we're working with the tax professionals, there's a lot of, depends who I get that day, right? So they'll give me one bit of information, but they'll say some accountants don't recognize it this way. So talk to your tax professional.
You're referring to like TFSAs.
Yeah, TFSAs in particular.
Yeah, we don't deal with too much of that down here in the U.S. is usually they have to get rid of them, right, when they come down to the States. But we deal with that all the time, right? We do a lot of planning. We look at all of our clients' tax returns. So in April of every year, after our clients file their taxes, they upload it to us, and then we upload it into a system. And if I looked at 100 tax returns in a year, I would say there's 70 different ways that people put RSP income on their U.S. tax return, right? And 25 different ways how CPP is added, and 30 different ways where other Canadian income might be added to a U.S. tax return. So, and everybody's kind of trying to figure it out themselves, and a lot of people try to do it on TurboTax, but even cross-border CPA, or not cross-border CPAs, but just you go to your local CPA and they don't know this stuff either, right? So it's a hodgepodge, and we try to talk to a lot of CPAs and say, hey, this is our experience of like how we usually see this information added, and but there's different ways, right, to that we certainly see it.
when it comes to CPAs, do you try to encourage clients to deal with cross-border accountants if the need is there for dual tax returns? If not, probably I'm sure there's no need, but if they have income up both sides of the border and they still have to report or file, do you prefer they go with somebody that does both returns or deal with two separate professionals?
We have a couple of really good cross-border CPAs that we refer to. A lot of our clients don't have Canadian income. They're really solely U.S. based, so they don't file Canadian tax returns unless maybe they have rental income or another situation up there. Maybe some stock options that haven't vested yet. But one of our issues that we have is we have so many clients ask for cross-border CPAs. We have a hard time finding enough. To be honest with you, right? And then we're referring, there's a person in my hometown, actually. We live in a small town here, Milford, Michigan. And there's a cross-border CPA that's fantastic in Milford, but we could refer him 50 clients a year. And it's just that he and then he can't even handle all the business, right? So we run into that issue a lot, that there's just not even enough resources out there sometimes for us to refer people to. So a lot of times clients are doing it themselves or they're working with somebody, and then we kind of educate that person on how maybe it should be done properly, right? And then again, not being a tax preparer, but just saying, this is what we usually see, right? We usually see Social Security, CPP is added here. And this is how the foreign tax credit typically works, right? So those are some of the basics. And then, here in the States, we have these FBARs and other tax forms that you have to file. And a lot of people come to us and they haven't, right? And that's another type of worms. So.
Yeah, we run into similar issues. We'll find a really good cross-border accountant, and we've got a network of them, but then they get so busy, they stop taking on new clients.
Yeah.
Right. So that's, I think, probably one of the biggest hurdles we have now as well. And then the ones that are out there, the good ones anyway, they're expensive. Let's honestly, it's not your typical tax return, so they can charge a premium. And so they should, because it's a specialized field.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be great if we had a cross-border accountant on the team in-house and our clients wouldn't have to worry about any of this?
Yeah.
I've thought about this so much. It's part of the 10-year plan, Pedro, is to have that, right? So that would be nice. The problem is I don't want to work 80 hours, a week, February, March, and April to make sure that people's tax returns are being done. So that's nice to just kind of on that off to other people, right, and have them deal with it. So
I think our plans might actually be lining up. That's part of our plan as well. It's to provide that family office environment where we have the resources in-house. Should the client choose to use them, they don't have to, but if they choose to, it's here. Now, can you talk about your model a little bit? Because it's your business model is different than ours. We are completely fee-based, based on assets under management, but you have different different fees for different services. Is that the right way to describe it?
Yeah. So when I started the business, I think one of the challenges that I had when I started the business is a lot of our clients are not in Michigan. So almost, I would say, maybe 5%, 10% of our clients are in Michigan. Most of our clients are throughout the United States. And one of the things that I kind of thought to myself, Pedro, is if somebody just learns about me and they're in Texas, they learn about me on Facebook, are they going to be like, hey, Bryan, who just started this business a month ago, here's $1 million, invest my money and provide financial planning, right? And maybe they would, but a lot of people want to kind of feel comfortable with you, and they might only want the planning. They don't necessarily need the investment management. So what we started with at the time was, if you were just interested in working with a financial planner but didn't want us to manage your investments, we charged a kind of a monthly subscription where they could pay us $300, then it went to $400 per month, and you just have access to a financial planner. We would create a financial plan for them, and we'd provide some investment advice, but not actually manage their investments for them. Now most of our clients are investment management clients, but we still offer, if people are interested in just a financial plan. It's a 5-meeting cross-border financial plan that goes through, kind of the goal collecting and the, putting, are you on track for retirement, putting together your U.S. and Canadian retirement accounts and benefits, and what does it all look like? So if somebody just wants a financial plan and they don't want us to manage their investments, we still offer that as an option for people. And even today, where we're now managing over $100 million for our clients, we still, about a third of our income or revenue this year will come from just people paying for financial plans.
Oh, that's really good then. So there is a need for, that's something Tracy brings up to me all the time. Would be nice if we could charge for this, because a lot of times they don't take it seriously, right? To be honest with you.
Sure.
And I know how much work Tracy puts into the plans, how many hours are dedicated to it. But we feel that, or like Tracy and I agree with her, that if they were actually paying for like a dollar amount for the plan specifically, they might take it more seriously. All right, so that's where Tracy, you have the comprehensive plan and then more the goal-based cash flow analysis type of thing. Because we're big believers in plans. Like we encourage all of our clients to get a plan prepared and have a plan. That's part of our review when we meet with clients, right? So that's fantastic that you offer the different service levels, or not levels, right? I'm sure the level is the same across the board. It's just different services.
Yeah, and almost all of our clients, Pedro and Tracy, start as planning clients. Like they, and again, it's just this, hey, you probably saw a Facebook ad or maybe a YouTube video of us, and you're in Michigan, we're in whatever state, right? And gosh, do we even know you that well, right? We want to work with you a little bit. We want to feel comfortable with you. And usually they'll start off with the planning model, and then if there's a need, move to investment management after that, right? So it's a big part of what we do. And and then some people are like, hey, great, this was fantastic experience, but I want to self-manage my own investments, right? We get a lot of do-it-yourself people who they just want a one-time plan to kind of put it all together, and that's perfectly fine, right? We, that's a service that we offer.
So in addition to the monthly subscription, you also have the one-time plan.
So I should stop. We don't do the monthly subscription anymore.
Okay.
We stopped that, and we just said, okay, what ended up happening with the monthly subscription, when people pay monthly, we found out they expect to meet monthly.
Oh, I see.
Right. And that became just too much. Like, you're doing like 10 meetings in a year, and both of you are just exhausted at that point, right? You're just kind of talking talk. So we stopped it and said, okay, we're just going to charge kind of a planning fee. We charge half of it up front, half of it when it's over, and it's a 5-meeting financial plan. It's very systematic, and it just we use a financial planning tool here, and a few different financial planning tools and tax planning tools, and kind of just create a comprehensive plan for the client.
How many hours typically do you put into a plan, like in total?
So if it's a 5-meeting financial plan, I would say on average, it's 5 hours per with the client. And then usually I would say it's about 5 to 7 hours total of prep. So I would say you're looking at 10 to 12 hours for a comprehensive financial plan.
Tracy, I believe it's 8 hours on average.
I would say it's about 8 to 10 hours for a comprehensive plan.
Yeah.
And then there's reviews and follow-ups after that.
Yeah.
That can kind of put you over.
Tracy, how many meetings do you typically start off with, like when a client comes to you to create a cross-border financial plan?
So usually there's the onboarding meeting where I gather the information to open the accounts, and then I send them the questionnaires that they complete. We meet for an hour and a half long discovery meeting where I learn about their goals, and then I'll call or email to ask follow-up questions. Then I'll take 4 to 8 hours to complete the plan and then present. And then I email or call regularly to make sure they're implementing the recommendations. And then I meet maybe 6 or 12 months later to make sure they're still on track, and then meet up annually.
And do you find a good financial planning tool or software that you have access to there?
Here is my hurdle. So
It's
this is, and I'm not super awesome with Excel. I'm getting better. But if I could make software, that'd be amazing, right? If I was an IT specialist,
Yeah.
it'd be great. So I normally use Conquest to create the Canadian plan, and then I'm converting everything into American to kind of make things work.
Or from American to Canadian.
Yeah, American to Canadian.
A lot of American to Canadian.
But then I'm explaining, like, there's limitations on my software, so we kind of go through that and I explain everything. But if I could have one that had Canadian and US, that'd be great.
Have Pedro, invest in that. Start building that out, Pedro. I've always thought about, like, this would be a great tool, but that seems like we use Right Capital, which is fantastic, but we have to manipulate it a lot for the Canadian stuff. Now, it's great. What's great about Right Capital is it's great with, like, OAS and it's great with tax planning. It's great with OAS and CPP, but it's not so great with, we have to, unfortunately, all the manual, like, I wish there was a button that said, okay, just convert this to, US dollars from Canadian dollars, but there's not, right? We have to kind of do all the manual, and almost all of our clients are US based, so it's almost all US dollars that we're converting to. So, but it's a great tool that I highly recommend if you have US based clients, at least.
That's not a big portion of our business. We do have some US based, but it's more Canadians that have moved to the United States.
Yeah.
And being dual registered gives us the ability to service those clients, but it's mostly Canadians coming back to Canada.
Yeah.
Right. So GM worker that retires and wants to come back to be close to the grandkids and the family, that type of thing. Right. Like, but before, the process, before clients meet with Tracy, there's a couple meetings that take place with me. Right. So we have a process in place where I will do the introductory meeting qualification, let's call it, to make sure it's a fit for both sides, not just us, but for the client as well. Because you don't want to take on clients that don't like us, or we end up not liking them. Like, we love our clients.
Sure.
Right. 9.9% anyway. But it want to make sure there's a proper fit. If we can't provide value, there's no point in taking on a client.
And to force our philosophy on someone, it's just going to cause friction in the long run. So we want to make sure that our mindset and our objectives are aligned, right?
Yeah. So from the introductory meeting, the qualification meeting, turning it over to Tracy for the planning, account opening, we have other team members doing that. But then Christopher and I come in, my associate portfolio manager, proposing the portfolio based on the plan, right, goals and risk, and then monitoring. And we're discretionary, so it had to go discretionary because it's just too much work to be transaction based.
How does a client usually come to you, Pedro? Is it mainly referrals, or is it financial advisors? I know I've referred people to you, but, like, is that?
It's referrals, introductions from other professionals for the most part.
Yeah.
We've done some Google AdWords, we're at Google Ads, yeah. But we haven't done those for, my goodness, almost a year now, I think.
Sure.
All right, so it pretty much introductions from other professionals, mostly CPAs. So we have a handful of accountants cross-border that we deal with.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But that, just going back a bit, 5 years on your own as a cross-border advisor, basically, at over 100 million, that's fantastic growth, like, honestly.
Oh, thank you.
That's tremendous signal of success. Like, you've done very, very well. So congratulations on that. And your team is growing as well. We're in terms of asset size, we're bigger, but if you convert it to US dollars, we're about half. No, I'm joking. But our dollar is creeping up, which is good.
How long have you been doing this for, Pedro? How long have you been working with Raymond James?
So with Raymond, I've been in the industry 27 years, right? So it typically, traditional financial advisor, just asset allocation, mutual funds mostly. I've gone from, like, an advisor to a broker to Raymond James almost 11 years ago, and that's where I became a portfolio manager. And in 2015, got my Series 766, right? So I started focusing on cross-border. And I'll be honest, I tell everybody this, the reason I did it was selfish on my side. I love Florida and I wanted to spend more time there. And I figure, hey, if I'm a registered investment advisor and I could deal with Canadians in Florida, the better it's going to be.
Yeah, you have a lot of clientele down there.
A lot of clients, yeah. And one of the biggest reasons I became cross-border is, and you would know this, so we have regulators. And the client's residency is what triggers whether or not an advisor could advise them.
Sure.
Right. So if a Canadian leaves Ontario, as an example, or British Columbia and moves to California, Texas, Florida, whatever the case is, their residency, the majority of Canadian advisors are no longer licensed and allowed to actually work with that client because they're not regulated or registered with the regulator. So I had a client that transferred to, say, California at the time. This goes back 15 years. And he was a great client, we got along well and stuff, but I couldn't continue to service him. And I saw how he grew, and he actually just became owner of this tech company and just sold it. And then back then, even I wish I could continue to work with them. And actually I ended up working with the family in the future, but that was the reason. It's I don't want to lose these clients.
Sure. Yeah.
Great clients, right? So what do I have to do? And that's where I discovered Raymond James, their cross-border capabilities or abilities, and joined the firm. And it basically went from there.
Yeah, that tends to be what it is, right? You just find there's a need for this, and it's nice to be able to fill that.
Could I ask if there's one common challenge that your clients face? What would that be?
Oh, that's a great question. I think most of the clients that come to us are trying to answer the same question that every person is trying to answer, which is, hey, Bryan, can I retire? When can I retire? How much can I spend in retirement? Right. And the challenge that my clients deal with, as yours deal with as well, Tracy and Pedro, is, hey, in the U.S., if you just worked in the U.S., you have these decisions to make, and they're big decisions, but you typically say, okay, when do I turn on my Social Security and when do I turn on my IRA, right? Those are kind of the big decisions. How much do I draw from my IRA? And when you're cross-border, you have to make the decision of Social Security, but then you have to make the decision on CPP, Canadian Pension Plan, and OAS as well. And then you have to make a decision, do I draw money from my U.S. IRA accounts, my Canadian RSPs, my Canadian Lira accounts, my Roth accounts, right? There's just so many different buckets to choose from. So at the end of the day, we're just kind of answering the same question that every financial advisor, I think, is trying to answer. It's just, how do we put it all together when you have so many different things going on? And I'm sure, I think we've kind of talked about this before, Pedro. It's there's so much misinformation out there as well, right? Because I think before, cross-border planning is certainly becoming more prevalent, I think, but you and me have both been on the cross-border Facebook pages, right? And somebody will ask a question and, I'll read through it sometimes. I'm like, oh my gosh, none of these are right? These are awful recommendations. And it's not necessarily their fault. It's everybody is just trying their best to figure this out using their own situation or their friend's situation. But there's just a lot of misinformation. So when people come to us, a lot of us is just kind of trying to be like, nah, that's not necessarily right. Which, so that I think those are the biggest challenges just overall that we face. The biggest thing that I'm facing now, which is the same thing that Tracy is dealing with, which is, I kind of know this now. I've been doing this for 15 years, but now we're growing to a point where I now have to teach other people to do this, right? And there's not a place where I can be like, hey, go learn over here. This is the cross-border CFP course, right?
Bryan, this was my rant on Thursday. Why is there a course? Why aren't there flow charts? Why isn't there a pros and cons list? Why hasn't someone created it yet? I am tasking you, and then please forward me a copy.
So And I'm doing, it's like we do a lot of YouTube videos now. And, certainly that's a prospecting tool for us, but it's a lot of it's like, hey, I want you to listen to all of these, right? Before you get started as an education tool to figure out how to do this. So that's the next challenge for me, is going from my own person to hiring people. How do we start to teach new people this, right?
Oh, you, Tracy, I know what your challenges are, but if you want to just remind me, like a common hurdle that you face.
With cross-border, or just planning in general?
That's planning in general, or yeah, it's completely up to you.
I feel like planning is almost like creating a diet and exercise plan for someone, right? So as much as I can try and make things simple for someone, it's the implementation is the most challenging hurdle for me, or getting them to want to improve their financial life as much as I want it for them. That to me is my own challenge.
Yeah.
But on the planning side, it's TFSAs, and on the cross-border side, TFSAs are a challenge for me.
Yeah, well, that's the hard thing, right? Because I honestly, 50% is this, like, there's so much of a gray area, right? Where people are like the TFSA thing down in the States. It's kind of, there's a way that people treat it, but is that it's kind of a gray area that, in that area, right? We find the same thing with RESPs down here, where, we have had some clients get a ruling about how they can keep it, and other clients, we usually try to get them to give those away, right? I think HSAs from U.S. accounts might be similar up in Canada, right? So there's just there's such a gray area that even, the U.S. and Canada totalization agreement was created before TFSAs and Roth IRAs and HSAs, right? And so I think people are just trying to figure this all out, and there's not even a right answer, to be honest with you.
That's right. And even life insurance. So Americans living in, like, life insurance is a big part of our estate planning, tax planning. But for Americans, like a universal life policy or any policy with an investment component, is it the right thing for them or not? Like, it creates tax implications for the investment component.
Yeah.
And most advisors have no clue about that.
Yeah.
And my frustration is when I'm dealing or even competing with a Canadian advisor that basically tells the client or the prospect, just cash in your IRA, we'll roll it over into your RRSP. It's like, you're an idiot. Like, it's like, I'm sorry, that is the worst possible advice you could give without looking at the tax implications and future, what could happen down the road and the advantages of continuing to hold that IRA versus cashing it out and putting it into an account that is fully taxable on second death versus the IRA that could be stretched out 10 years and things like that, right? But when they don't know, they're doing what sometimes they think is best, but they're just thinking about, gathering assets.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I appreciate about you, though, is that you recognize, because you have referred clients to me, like you mentioned, and you recognize that you're not able to properly service them or provide the value that they need, right? If they're on the Canadian side, as an example, and you've made that introduction, right? So it's great to have professionals like you that we can reach out to that are truly doing what's in the best interest of the client. And as a true fiduciary, that's what we should always be doing. And that's the other big difference. The majority of advisors in Canada are not fiduciaries.
Yeah.
Right? They're not. Right. And the Canadian population doesn't even know what a fiduciary is for the most part.
Is that changing, Pedro? I know the RIA model is like a newer model in Canada, right?
It's if you're an investment, so traditionally we were called investment counselors, right? So if you're a member of CIRO, which is one of the regulators, you're not a fiduciary. You have to be regulated by at the provincial level, and it's multiple provinces. It's not just one. It's whatever province you're registered in. As a portfolio manager, then you are a fiduciary.
Yeah.
Right. So in the United States, as an RIA, I am a fiduciary and I apply the same principles to my Canadian clients. But we're in the process of applying to be registered as a fiduciary in Ontario, British Columbia, Alberta. Like, there's a number of provinces where it's in. Right. So but it's not changing, and it won't. And I could go into, that's a whole other conversation. It's based because of the businesses that control the financial services market in Canada. There's about 5 of them, but that's it's a different topic, I think. Bryan, we are going to have your contact information below. So if you want to just put out your website.
Sure. Yeah, please. It's RetireMitten.com. People ask me a lot of times why RetireMitten. When I started the firm, Mitten is Michigan is the Mitten state. I thought that we would have a lot of Michigan clients, which I don't. So now nobody actually even knows what RetireMitten means. But it's RetireMitten.com. If you're looking for just some good YouTube cross-border information, you can check us out on our RetireMitten YouTube channel as well. So, and Tracy, if you're if you talk to any U.S. clients, check it out. Hopefully there'll be some good information for you as well. So as you're learning this, right? And good luck, because I know I
already told her check out Bryan's website. Like, yeah, no, it's great. And we actually came across each other through Facebook. A lot of those Facebook groups, right? Your name kept popping. I checked out your website. Well, this guy knows what he's talking about. And I reached out to you originally maybe a couple of years ago now. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But it's nice when I see a lot of posts and people are saying, just go to retirement. And Bryan knows what he's talking about. I'll put a little like and things like that. And I have to hold myself back sometimes with some of the comments, but I admit I get caught up in it. And I'll try to put it, not advice, because obviously we can't put advice online, but helping to this and that. And people will provide comments that are completely wrong. And I have to give a little snip back, but
that's right. Yeah, exactly.
I got better at that, not to do it.
Well, I appreciate it. And like I said, I'm really excited about the podcast, because there's as much as I've been doing this for a long time, Tracy, I'm still learning something. I had a question the other day and asked a cross-border client because they were in Canada, and it just was, something that I wasn't familiar with, right? So you're still learning. So it's as much as you're going to do this, and you'll ask a lot of questions. So,
Bryan, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time. It's great having you on.
Yeah, it was great meeting you and Tracy, and talking to you, Pedro, and best of luck with the podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you.